Hello and welcome to the first episode, the inaugural episode, if you will, of the Students of the Game podcast. I'm George Pitches and I'm joined by my good friend and football connoisseur, Max Mahler. How are you doing, Max?
I'm very well. How are you in these depressing times?
They are quite that, aren't they? But I'm good. I'm very excited to be getting on with this. It's a project that myself and we've been talking about doing it for a little while, haven't we?
Yeah, well, yeah, as I said, mainly like 3 a.m. It's never been an idea that came to us when it was light outside, let's put it that way. But yeah,
it hasn't.
Here we are.
But all the best ideas tend to come in the later stages of the night, don't they?
You bang on the money, George. You ask any billionaire out there, and I'll say it was 4 a.m. every time.
That they will. So, a little bit of information around this podcast before we get going. This is hosted by the LGSM, so a big thanks to them. That's the Liverpool Guild Student Media Society, and they've really given us sort of the inspiration, but also the infrastructure to crack on with this podcast. Now, there's a chance that this exact episode won't feature on LGSM because there's still a few legal technicalities that need ironing out. We haven't had on. We are not, are we? We're infants at the metaphorical media table.
Do you want to tell them about our little rendezvous trying to get this working the past hour?
Yeah. This is the second or third attempt at recording this pod. The first attempt we got about 45 minutes in, only to realise that Max had unfortunately not pressed record. So you could hear a one-sided conversation coming from me, which I don't think is very entertaining.
Well, that's what the audience wants, really. You see, God bless my bladder for needing to go to the toilet, otherwise it would have been a whole episode.
Very true. The wee break ended up being just what we needed to sort things out. So, just to clarify, you are in fact recording this time, aren't you?
I'm as sure as I could possibly be.
Well, while you check, I'll give a little bit more of a background around this pod. So it's a European football podcast, and that's because most of the pods that are featuring on LGSM at the moment around football are very sort of British-centric. It's either the Premier League or any other English football. So our niche, our way in, was to talk about European football. Obviously, England is a part of Europe, believe it or not, as some people wouldn't want you to believe anymore. So there will be some episodes and some features around the Premier League and English football, but for the majority of it is going to be around Europe's top 4 leagues without the Premier League. So that's enough of the overview stuff at the beginning. Max, what can the listeners look forward to hearing about in this very first episode?
Not much, really. No, I'm joking there. There should be something for you to enjoy. So we're going to start off with a little... have a little look at the Milan derby from Sunday. It's quite an interesting game. I'm quite thrilled that we get to do that again because we forgot to mention Ashley Young. So,
of course, and how can anyone?
Yeah, I know. I was
Ashley
gutted
Young?
When I realised I hadn't talked about him. So that'll be a nice little start, and then we're going to move on to Messi in Barcelona, which is there's a few laughs in there, so you might enjoy that. And then we're going to go all the way from the laughter to the heartbreak when we revisit Atalanta and the fallout from Papa Gomez leaving for Sevilla. And then
it does sound one more I think you've forgotten off the end.
That's PSG and their dominance in the league and why that might just be a mystique rather than something with any truth to it.
Very true, but the first 3 topics are so engrossing and engaging.
And we've already covered them once, so.
And we've already covered them once. So we'll wait to get to the PSG section, and then we'll be as surprised to hear what comes out of our mouths as you are. So starting with the Milan derby, it was, as you say, a game that happened last Sunday, and a very entertaining game, unless you are a Milan fan. Inter have now gone 4 points clear with a 3-0 victory over their fierce rivals. As an Italian football fan, Max, what was the feeling, what was the sense you were getting from watching that game?
It became abundantly clear that whilst there may have been a point apart before the game, there is a massive gulf between the two teams yet. I mean, there's Zlatan cannot compete. No matter how many goals he scored at the minute, there's no way he can compete or do enough for his team to make him win the league. If Inter have got Martinez, Lukaku, and they've now decided to play Perisic ahead of Ashley Young, which may have been obvious to most of us, but obviously Conte had different ideas for the first 6 months. But yeah.
I like how you've got Ashley Young in as early as possible this time, so we don't forget him.
I didn't forget him. wonderful man.
But no, you do highlight the golfing class between the two sets of players. And Lukaku and Martinez in particular were absolutely outstanding on the day and have been outstanding all season. Lukaku's currently got 23 goal contributions in 22 games, with 17 goals and 5 assists. And Martinez is on 17 goal contributions in 23 games with 13 goals and 4 assists. Bearing in mind Lukaku's taking penalties, so his goal numbers are slightly higher, but they're pretty much both performing out of their skins and at a relatively similar level. I liked the point you made on the first take about Lukaku being perhaps the more important player of the two, and if you'd go into that again, that would be great. It'd be a nice topic to talk about.
Well, he's extremely complete. There's very few weaknesses in the game. I think he definitely got unfair press the first time around in England.
Yeah,
his first touch is actually, I think, one of the best. Particularly for a striker his size, he's a big guy. You know, he is phenomenal. I think. And Lautaro Martinez is learning a lot from him. Lukaku's a very intelligent person as well. I think he speaks 5 or 6 languages, which I speak 1, and I'm my dad's.
But you're obviously
my dad's German.
You're very intelligent as well.
Yeah, my dad's German. I still couldn't speak 2 languages. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Lukaku, and I think Martinez he's a very good learner as well. I think he respects that Lukaku is a senior of the two, and he's willing to learn from him. But what are your thoughts?
And I think his development is certainly very interesting. I think we were talking about it a little bit before. He was very much a diamond in the rough before these last 2 seasons of pretty phenomenal returns from him. And not that often anymore are players playing for elite clubs, and I think Internazionale still count as an elite club, despite the fact that they've had several years out of the spotlight. You don't often see young players and young players that are somewhat incomplete being given the level of time and time to flourish that he has been given. So I was very happy to see him playing well. Isn't that nice?
It is happy. I'm happy you're happy. So two very happy champions.
Well, that's the perfect way to be. He was very much playing sort of second fiddle, I thought, the strike force to what was a simply outstanding goalkeeping performance. In fairness, Lautaro Martinez's both goals were pretty phenomenal, but Samir Handanovic was just a class above. I've written on my notes the forgotten Slovenian goalkeeper behind Jan Oblak, and we touched a little bit before about how he's getting a bit old, and you know you're not a fan of the aging players, are you, Max? So you had a bit to say about it.
Especially if Italy has such a complex relationship with aging people. I think it may have been like a Galazzo podcast with James Richardson and Gab Marcotti and James Horncastle, where they were talking about Italian men don't leave, like they very rarely leave their mother's house until they're about 30. So I think that's why.
Is that right?
Well, I don't. Again, I'm speculating. I may have just made that up and just blamed someone for it, but. Yeah, it's a weird. Like, again, I didn't mention Ashley Young before in the last time we recorded this, but I get to mention for a second time now. He's 36 this year, and for the most part of the season, he was Inter's number 1 left back.
Yeah,
I mean that's insane. So that does show. But Handanovic is only a year older than him. But to be fair, this year he has sort of shown signs that he is getting on a bit now. He's been making a few mistakes. But, you know, he's 36 and he's still performing very well, as we saw in like the first 10 minutes after half-time.
He did make several unbelievable saves, but it becomes harder to justify the mistakes that he makes the older he gets, I feel.
Because there's always that, as soon as you make a mistake when you're older, it's like, oh, he's past it now.
Yeah, exactly.
But he did show, in that period, he showed why he's still number 1 for Inter, even if it's not going to be forever. Which is quite nice, I guess.
He can enjoy it while it lasts.
And just hope he doesn't make mistakes which cost him the league, which I don't think he will. I think they will win the league now. I think they're the favourites. I don't think AC Milan have enough to compete with them.
It would just be a lot of fun to see any other team other than Juventus win the Italian league, I think.
Apart from Inter and Conte.
And despite your rasping hate for Inter,
I try and talk about.
Do you not slightly think?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the last recording, obviously, I keep forgetting that the people listening to us haven't heard our lost recording.
Yeah,
I keep referring it as like this is a sequel to it.
Remember
right?
when?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
But yeah, I mean, I did sort of lose my cool a little bit when I was describing Conte and his hair transplants and his lack of loyalty to Lecce. I didn't even dismiss him going to Juventus, but obviously the Juventus to Inter switch is the one which sort of sticks in my throat a little bit and makes me think, I don't really like you. Not you, George. Antonio Conte.
I was about to take some significant offence. I'm coming at this from slightly a different angle to you, and I'm aware that I might be painting a very large dartboard, a very large target on my back for coming out with these opinions in a football media kind of sphere. But I only recently got into football, and I say recently, talking about the last 6 to 7 years. So in that time, I never grew up with the sort of tribalism that is quite rampant around football fans now. Yeah, exactly. by the man the other side of the screen. And so I don't have as much contempt when I see that kind of disloyalty. I think it's definitely very relative. And sometimes you do see, like, you know, going back for historical examples, Luis Figo, for instance, I can look at that and think that that's a pretty shoddy display of loyalty. It's a nice way of putting it, I guess. But I don't know. I think part of me is almost congratulatory of him wanting to spread his metaphorical wings.
You look more and more awkward as you say it. It's like you can feel the target getting bigger.
I am sort of treading on eggshells a bit to not say the wrong thing any more so than I have already done.
Yeah, he's not a very well liked man in certain parts of Italy, I don't think. I'll try and go through a brief history without getting too emotional. So
go on.
I believe he moved from Lecce to Juventus in like the early 90s, or maybe 1990s, something like that. And Juventus has a very complex and quite nasty history towards the teams from the south of Italy. And I believe the relationship between Lecce and Juventus fans in particular is not particularly nice. So that was his first sort of big betrayal. And then obviously he becomes a legend at Juventus, fair enough. Goes to a manager for 3 years, decides can't win the Champions League with this team. So he leaves. Obviously they go on to reach the Champions League final in 2015, the year after he departs. Then a couple of years later he thinks, I can't go back to Juventus now. My relationship with them's not great. Oh, I'll go be Inter manager, our biggest rivals. I mean, that's just something that's the one big thing about Italian football that just sort of baffles me and frustrates me.
It is quite a bitter pill to swallow, I'd imagine. If I were even remotely invested in the woes of Lecce,
I'm not invested. I feel aggrieved very easily, especially when it comes to abstract things in football. But yeah, that's Conte for you. Did I mention his hair transplant?
He is a very divisive character. You did briefly, but it seems to be something you keep referring back to.
I feel like I'm foreshadowing my own downfall in terms of hair by bringing it up so many times. But it's
the one fear, isn't it, as a young man?
And losing your teeth.
And losing it, but presumably happens at a slightly longer rate.
Hopefully, I haven't been to the dentist for a while, so.
Well.
Now I'm just really self-conscious now.
Maybe you should schedule an appointment. It's a good job we're on audio only then, isn't it? We're going to talk a little bit about Inter Milan's tactics because Conte's pioneered a system that somewhat is blending defensive solidity with attacking creativity and chance creation, and it's working for some pretty outstanding results. They're currently the top goal scorers. With 4 more than Atalanta and 10 more than Napoli and Roma. And they've only conceded the second fewest goals behind Juventus. So this idea that defence and attack are becoming pretty synonymous with each other, and the idea that you can either be a defensive side or an attacking side is very much being challenged by this Milan team, don't you feel?
Yeah, no, you're right. They are looking very complete at the moment. I think, aside from those 2 strikers up top, one of the most important things about them is the wing backs. And again, third time I mentioned Ashley Young now, which I'm really, really happy about. Having Perisic,
you're making up for lost time.
I am having Perisic and Hakimi either side. That's a very un-Conte-like sort of system to have, because he does. Obviously, yes, had the little romance with Victor Moses a few years back, at Chelsea.
Marcos Alonso.
Yeah, but this is very attacking. None of these players are particularly good defenders, but they're phenomenal going forward. And I do like. There's parts in the season where he was mainly going for Young and like Darmian, who we all remember for his not really for anything.
Spell at United.
So that's a very positive move, and I don't think it's a surprise that their form's improved drastically since that switch. It's shown in the results at least.
The Hakimi transfer was quite interesting, really, wasn't it? Because
he came out of nowhere.
He came out of nowhere, but I think there was just a general feeling that he was going to stay at Real Madrid after his loan spell finished at Dortment. I don't know whether you agree with that, but
the thing is,
he seemed the long-term heir to Dani Carvajal almost.
Yeah, but I guess I don't agree with the decision, but I imagine the thought process behind it was if you're going to play a back four with Marcelo and Hakimi either side, that and an aging Ramos in centre back and an error-prone Varane,
exactly balanced,
you are asking for trouble. So I believe that's probably why they made the hasty decision to get rid of him. I don't agree with it, but here we are.
Well, as we've said, it's clearly working, but to give you a brief flavour of what their tactical setup looks like, they play a 3-5-2, and primarily in defence, the two centre forwards will press the opposing centre backs. They'll take one each. This works most effectively when the opposition are playing a 4-back rather than a 3-back. So the two centre forwards occupy a defender each, which will mean that in turn the ball is forced out wide towards the wing backs or the wide midfielders. The wing backs from Inter Milan, and the centre mids will then press the opposing fullbacks or wide midfielders in order to force lazy balls forward, which the defenders can pick out, or if they're forced to play back, then Lautaro Martinez and Romelu Lukaku are already pressing. I want to thank Russell Pope on Twitter for his excellent analysis of Internazionale's defensive solidity. He's a fantastic creator and a guy that has been following me for a little while, so I thought I'd better give him a shout out, although he does have significantly larger Twitter following than I do. So where do you think this spells the next for AC Milan? Do you think that the title challenge is over, or do you think that you've rightly mentioned that Ibrahimovic isn't getting any younger and they can't necessarily rely on him, but is that it for them?
Well, they're only 4 points behind, but I just don't think. I mean, they've lost a few key players. Benacer in centre mid, that's a big loss for them. And again, if Zlatan gets injured again, they will struggle to get the goals they need to. But again, top 4 for them, that's a good season. Might be slightly disappointing, but
it is only because of their meteoric start that we're having these kind of conversations.
Yeah,
I think you rightly point out they would have taken that.
There's
before.
a long way to go, and a year ago they wouldn't expect to have Stefano Pioli in charge. So for him to be where he is doing what he's doing is very impressive. And I think the AC Milan hierarchy were well aware that this is a longer process. There was no expectation to be challenged for the title really. So it's fair enough.
We talked about it briefly, but before even the first take of the podcast, I think, the other night. But it seemed that Ibrahimovic's decision, after having that pretty shocking ACL injury during his time at Manchester United, to then go out and recuperate some fitness, play in a league that is less physically demanding, and get confidence back as a player in the MLS is something that clearly he is reaping the benefits of now.
Yeah, well, I don't think he expected to be coming back, even no matter what he'd ever say. I'm sure he wouldn't admit it, but I don't think he really thought when he went to LA Galaxy he'd be coming back a couple of years player and trying to help AC Milan win a title. Which is, again, you're not the biggest fan of Zlatan, are you? But
I'm not. No.
Can't slate the man for being able to do what he's doing at the minute at his age.
Well, the cynical side of me would say that the Lion, as he is referred to himself, would have never ruled out a move back to the top 5 leagues purely from his own arrogance, thinking that he's able to cut it at any age and in any league. But clearly, he's proving me wrong because of his quite phenomenal returns this season. Do you have any other points you'd like to talk about with the Inter derby, or should we move on?
Let's move on. Let's move on. It feels like we've talked about Inter for a while now.
We're almost at the 20-minute mark. So Messi and Barcelona is the next topic of conversation. And it is one that we can really get our teeth into. I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff to say about this. It's a very broad title, but by that we mean the current situation of how Barcelona are doing, and Leo Messi's place within that, but also his role as a very unique footballer, and there's some stuff around his contract situation as well that we want to touch on. but I think I'll start this by saying Barcelona are in a bit of a limbo, aren't they, at the moment? They sit in fourth. They're 8 points behind league leaders Atletico Madrid. But we'll get to the behind the scenes stuff in a minute. But do you think that all of this media knee-jerk reaction is really befitting of a club that are not on paper in crisis?
Yes, I think it is. To be honest, I think they are.
I thought perhaps you'd say that.
They are in a really, really big crisis, and it's not an overnight thing. This is years and years of just poor management and poor understanding of what Barcelona needs to stay at the top of the game. I mean, if you're Barcelona and you're in charge, you should be looking at the former empires like AC Milan and see what caused them to drop off so massively, and think, what can I do differently? And Barcelona, they've just done their own thing. It's just like a Mickey Mouse club at the minute. They just have no idea what they're doing. It's just everyone seems to have different ideas what they should do, but none of it seems to make sense.
It's a sad demise, really, isn't it? Because they are footballing royalty.
It's the one constant, I'd say, from a very young age of watching football, that they've always been at the top, and that just seems that they're going in for a very torrid 10 years at least.
They are. Messi himself is having a quietly okay season. I think he's always going to be looking at golden boots to add to his copious collection of them already. He's currently sat on 16 goals, which is joint top with Luis Suarez. But there is this overarching feeling that he is declining, and it's impossible to not. He's a man that is 33 now. He's a certain age. Yeah. He's not getting any younger. How many years do you think Messi has left at the top, and how many years can we really appreciate his magical football for?
That's going to depend on a lot of different things. A, is he happy? B, is he playing in a good team? C, is that team adapted to his abilities? And you think if it's going to be at Barcelona, none of those criteria are going to really be met at the minute unless some significant change happens and they magically find billions and billions of euros to sort of fix the mess and be able to invest in players befitting of a team featuring Messi.
It's an excellent point, and their recruitment has been left wanting, I think, hasn't it? You talked before about the Neymar transfer being, 4 years ago now?
2017.
And in that time, we've seen Ousmane Dembele, Philippe Coutinho, who I think has the crown of being pretty much the worst signing of all time. It's not like
he wasn't alone fighting for the crown. There was plenty of different signings which could have taken it.
And pretty much all of them playing at Barcelona at one time or another. Griezmann is another one who's been just... Griezmann is a strange one because it's a shame seeing such a talented player make what seemed to everyone, apart from him and his future employers, as being totally the wrong move.
It was such a bizarre signing.
Before I waffle
given
on.
What happened a year before, when famously released that documentary deciding, will I stay at Atletico, will I go to Barcelona? Ooh, doesn't go. And obviously, the worst of it all is that Gerard Piqué's own production company produced that documentary, and this is the club that got publicly absolutely destroyed by the Neymar saga when all that Piqué I think it was Piqué himself that released on Instagram. He puts on like a picture of Neymar holding on like this, goes, he stayed. 2 days later, Neymar holding a PSG shirt, and I just think it is like layer after layer after layer on the cake of despair. I don't know what the cake of Catalonia is, but
should they find it? Yeah. The donkey, don't they? They like donkeys there. The donkey of doom.
I don't even have a donkey cake, George.
Well, you never know these days. But yeah, they're certainly not strangers to a social media calamity. And I thought it was epitomised quite hilariously in the humbling to PSG when Gerard Piqué was caught on camera berating Griezmann for his not tracking back and not keeping onto the ball at all.
He's had a rough time around 20.
He has had a rough time. I don't know if you saw it. I read an article that was saying Griezmann was complaining that his new teammates just wouldn't pass him the ball either in training or in a game, and I couldn't help but feel slightly sorry for him in that scenario.
How much did he cost? 120 million euros, something like that.
I
and
think
your
108 million
teammates,
pounds. I think.
and
Yeah.
like, nah, I'm not giving the ball. Nah, you're not worthy.
But that to me spells some level of. I'm trying to pick my words carefully because I've already, as you say, painted a massive target on my back. I'll be walking around with one on my forehead before too long. But do you not think that it's sort of, as much as it perhaps was a poor decision to bring him in the first place, the players have to accept that he's now there and have to make an effort to play well with him in order to bring the best out of the football club and what they know they can do?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has been given a bit more respect since Ronald Koeman came in. It's not a great amount, but it's better for him. I don't think. The problem is, I don't think he. I'm not saying Messi doesn't like get on with him or anything, but he has. Him and Luis Suarez were very, very close. They were on and off the pitch. They were always together, pretty much. So I think.
Well, there's that hilarious photo of Suarez's wife sat in the back seat, so Messi could sit up front, wasn't there?
Yeah, and that just shows like. And then obviously there's a very political move to get rid of Luis Suarez, who's now going to Atletico and potentially could help them win the league, whereas Barcelona don't get anywhere near competing with a team like Atletico, which seems quite sad in its own right. Nothing against Atletico, I love them, but yeah, it's just very sad.
They're not. They don't have the same sort of gravitas as a Barcelona yet.
But I mean,
perhaps they will,
as long as they don't bottle the league again, which we hope they won't.
But they have history, don't they, with throwing away
5 points
silverware
dropped to
that's
Levante
within touching distance
in 5 days.
And that is astonishing, isn't it, really?
Just the fact they're playing each other in the league 5 days apart is pretty astonishing. But obviously to lose 5 points is, not great. Not a great look.
You talked before about the culture of where a player is playing at being very important to their success. How much do you think that Barcelona's recent failures in the transfer market and failures to attract the same level of name that you'd be associating with that club has impacted on his current form and his potential future form?
I wouldn't say it's about attracting players. I mean, the players that signed him were sought after players. It was just whoever decided to sign off those massive fees, he should not be in a job anymore because there's just no planning whatsoever. It's just bizarre.
Well, Bartomeu is of course gone, and perhaps with excellent reason.
But as you've seen with Laporta trying to get back in the hot seat, they only go away for a bit. There's always sort of like links to the old legacies of the past, and there'll be on that director's board you have pro Bartomeu people and you have people against him. It's just so bureaucratic and so political. I guess that's one of the few downsides being like run by supporters, I guess. And they call themselves socios, I think is the correct term.
There were quite shocking footage, bits of footage coming out prior to Bartomeu's departure. These were right in the heat of the recent rumours around Messi's departure. But I don't know if you saw the videos of Barcelona fans scaling the gates to get into the Camp Nou, and almost like they were staging some kind of mutiny and revolution to get rid of the man at the top.
I mean, people can try and paint Lionel Messi as the root cause of Barcelona's problems, but that will never wash with the real Barcelona fans that have seen him play for last 6 years. It just wouldn't happen. I think Bartomeu tried to make it political by getting rid of Suarez. I think he would have liked to have got rid of a few more of the older players. I mean, Rakitic did go, but
they're still looking at relatively the same key players, aren't they?
They're in a really massive pickle with Lionel Messi because if Lionel Messi leaves that club and goes to PSG or Man City, that could irreversibly tarnish the intrinsic link between Barcelona and Lionel Messi, which they'd hoped to bank on for the next century. And there's a massive problem if Messi goes and signs for the City group, because he might go play for Manchester City for a couple of years, go and play for New York City for a couple of years. He then becomes essentially like a product of the City group rather than just being this Barcelona player. To most of us, that's all we've known him as, a Barcelona player. Even the link to Argentina doesn't seem that strong because he never had that same success on an international level. True. So there could be big problems.
Thanks to Higuain, probably.
Yeah, Higuain didn't play ball in a few finals.
But it's a great point, to be fair, and not a point that I'd heard before, really. But one I think is certainly true.
Well, it could be made up. We don't know.
It could be made up, but if you say anything with enough conviction, then people are bound to believe.
And that's what we aim for in this podcast.
We're what
misplaced
mass
conviction.
deception.
Yeah, exactly.
He there is definitely something to say for a one club man, but a one club man that's been as successful as Leo Messi is particularly hard to come by.
Yeah, especially in the modern era.
And that plays beautifully into Barcelona's legacy and the standing that Barcelona has as a club. As you say, in what 50 years' time, if you can look back and say they held on to arguably the greatest player of all time for his entire career, their standing as an institution is increased massively.
Yeah. There's no way we can justify the amount of money going in, but that's just football. Football a couple of years ago, the amount of money which was going into it is very different to now. We had a different sort of perspective on big transfer fees and stuff, because whereas now, every day you're looking on the news and you're seeing stuff about massive amounts of money wasted on PPE and whatnot. So I think when you see a big figure now, your instant reaction is to go, "Oh my god, that's just disgraceful. That's just it's a waste." We're not trying to say that Lionel Messi deserves to be paid 140 million euros.
I was about to say it is a
ridiculous amount of money, but we've got to remember football is a ridiculous industry. So let's just try.
It's certainly unique in the amount that they seem to be throwing at players these days. But that does segue us quite nicely on into talking about said Messi contract. Because it is quite obscene. I'm wearing a pair of glasses now, but if I wasn't, my eyes would be watering even more, having read the figures that we're just about to read to you. So £122 million a year is a base contract, and a loyalty bonus that's in the tens of millions. I mean, it's silly money, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's far too much for one person, but.
We use tens of millions loosely because when trying to find the exact loyalty bonus, I think we picked out 5 or 6 different figures.
Yeah, we couldn't decide on a source. So
different media.
We decided to be quite loose in our announcements.
Well, as you say, it's loose reporting is what we do best.
That's what we're.
It is true to say that if any player could command such a salary, it would be him.
Yeah, I mean, it's only him and Ronaldo that could really warrant it at the minute. They are marketing powerhouses, but I think we will see a little bit of a decline in terms of the wages being offered, the transfers being offered for the next few years. I don't know whether it will probably return at some point in the future, begrudgingly, because people have short memories and we seem to sort of forget how massive this amount of money is, but this is a sport that's greed always for money. You look at the European Super League, it's all about getting more money, and with more money will be increased wages, etc. It will all stay at the top. It won't filter down at all.
Is that a criticism of trickle-down economics?
Yeah, it is. I just want put a little bit of a spin on it.
It's very, very true. And sort of just to close this segment up, how do you feel about Barcelona's future chances in the Champions League? Because PSG have been an emerging super club for a little while before, but I think it's fair to say that they are pretty much a bona fide super club now. And that the 4-1 humbling of Barcelona is something that cannot be overlooked by football fans and pundits and players alike. So do you think that it's likely that we will see Barcelona perhaps win another Champions League in the next 5 years? Again, an arbitrary question, but I'll be interested to hear what you say.
I would just like to say that the 4-1 defeat, it's not quite as big as people think. It's not quite as it's almost been viewed upon like the 8-2 defeat last year. It's not the same. I mean, this was a game that was very close for the first half, then obviously the second half it sort of PSG destroyed them really, and then I think when Mbappe got the fourth, it was deserved, to be honest. I don't think that Barca deserved anything more from the game, but I think this isn't the moment people should be realising Barcelona are not the great team of the past. That moment should have been last year. I think, and nothing's really changed for them. They're still playing Martin Braithwaite.
Who is, of course, not exactly the pedigree forward that should be leading the line for a club like Barcelona.
If you're Lionel Messi, you're used to playing with some of the best players that ever played the game, and now you're being asked to play with a Middlesbrough reject. I mean, let that sink in. That's just...
not that you're critical. You're taking him at Shrewsbury Town.
I take him at Shrewsbury Town. He'd do well for us in League One. I think he's got the right capabilities for that league. But La Liga, Champions League, no. No, not.
But
Not
this Barca PSG is obviously a fixture that's given us fireworks before in the past. It would be quite exciting to imagine a comeback such as the one we saw.
Yeah, but I think you're going to be imagining for
3
a
years
while.
ago.
I think
4 years
that will
ago.
stay in your imagination.
Yes,
I
I
don't
think you're probably right.
We have very little hope, at least, of that happening.
Yeah, Ansu Fati hat-trick to send them back through would be
I think he's injured, so we're going to struggle for that one.
It would certainly be a thing for the history books then, isn't it? All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to be looking at Atalanta and Papu Gomez and PSG and their current dominance. So welcome back to the Students of the Game podcast. What will, for you, be a matter of milliseconds, for us ended up being about 24 hours because while we were recording it yesterday evening, we both burnt out a little bit. And we thought it would be best, in everybody's best interests, to give it a day and come back this evening and hit it with the full force of our energy. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say I feel more refreshed, but to be honest, that same sort of drag just feels right through me, and
it's just another day later in the week now, isn't it?
It just feels, I feel worse if anything, but that's fine, it's good.
Well, let's improve your evening by talking about a topic that is, I think, quite close to your heart, and one that I'm sure you're going to be giving us a very emotional retelling of. It is Atalanta and Papu Gomez and the situation between them. So, for those of you that don't know, he has recently joined Sevilla, having fallen out with Atalanta and primarily Gianpiero Gasperini. So can you give me a bit of an overview, Max, about that situation in general and how you feel about it?
Well, it's heartbreak, really, isn't it? Heartbreak's the only word which I think is apt for this situation. I mean, he is like the poster boy of the club, or had been for the past, 6-7 years. Like they plucked him out of Ukraine. They achieved so many wonderful things, which, quite frankly, was beyond the club. I think they had the 14th highest wage budget in the league. They've gone to the Champions League. They almost beat PSG, apart from show promoting, didn't get the memo, and obviously ruined that for everyone. But
what a guy! This
season, Champions League against Midtjylland of all people, everything came crashing down, and Gasperini and Gomez, are no more, falling out of love.
It was very much a fairy tale and a love story before, and I think that's presumably why so many people, including yourself, clearly are so upset about that whole thing.
It hurts.
I do want to say that I do love Gasperini, and I think to use that fairy tale metaphor. Well, no,
who do we blame?
Clearly
who do we blame?
Less.
Who do we blame? You got to take sides. It's a breakup. You got to take sides.
That is what football is, after all, isn't it? It's about
being
binary.
And being completely fickle for no reason. That's what we're here for.
In the interest of being fickle, then, I would probably say I think the blame lays more at Gasperini's feet. I want to read you a little quote from The Athletic, and it was an article about this whole falling out situation, and primarily about Papu Gomez's reaction to what was happening. So he put on his Instagram page, sort of in the middle of all of this fallout, saying, "Dear Atalanta fans, I'm writing on here because I have no way of defending myself and talking to you. All I wanted to say is you will get the whole truth when I leave. You know me. You know what kind of guy I am. I love you. Your captain."
So I just have a bit where he goes,
very
you know
heartfelt.
Me. Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, you know me. You know what I'm like.
He knows he's got them wrapped around his finger. I don't ever respect that, but I mean, I'm falling for it myself. It has been like a month since he left, and he hasn't really said anything about it, as far as I'm
the
aware.
Fallout is
I mean, I've been waiting, but no dice thus far.
But one of the major reasons for this fallout that's been cited was him being played out of position, which he didn't like, and then being dropped. As you say, he played in the Champions League again before being dropped a final time in the league. But that kind of descriptive way that he's talked about it is very heartfelt. That doesn't sign to me, I should say, as a sort of thing that's just because he's been playing out of position.
Yeah,
I mean, as much as you can, what sort of other things do you think might be going on there?
I think quite clear there's been a personal fallout. Gomez is a professional in the day. I don't think, for example, they played quite well in those games where he's playing in a different position. Actually worked quite well. Gasperini says publicly he's done this to preserve the player, keep him going longer, keep him at the highest level. Because it's not for he is 33. He's not young, and I think I can't say that Gasperini doesn't have the best interests of Gomez and the team. Because I do believe that there must be something behind the scenes which caused this rift, and I would love to know. Maybe they write a book about it. That'd be nice. I'd buy it.
Well, it certainly would be an interesting read. I'm trying now to find just how much they got when he went to Sevilla. I don't suppose
pennies,
you know off the top of your head.
Between 4 and 6 million euros, I'd say.
Oh, so it was by no means a cashing in while he still had a few years left.
I don't think his contract ran for too long. As I mentioned, he was meant to. It seemed for all the world that he was going to leave last summer to go play in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. He didn't. I guess that must really hurt the fans in Bergamo who suffered so much in the past year. Let's not forget they were the epicenter of the COVID outbreak at the very beginning of February. They suffered so much loss. And then the team just really won the Champions League and again Choupo-Moting, evil man, comes and ruins it. Then they think they're going to lose the captain.
Villain.
Yeah. No, I love you, Chopo. I'm sorry. Then it gets to the summer. They think they're going to lose the captain. He turns down so much money. He goes, no, I'm going to stay. We're going to achieve something this year. They had a bit of a rough start to the season. It wasn't too great, but they picked things up again. Everything looked okay. And then this rift and the captain's gone to Sevilla. Doesn't even get like a millionaire from it.
It is. There don't seem to be any real winners apart from presumably Sevilla, who you were right. It was 4.95 million that they picked him up for, which is pittance in today's market, absolutely. But looking ahead of their upcoming Champions League clash, James Horncastle in the same Athletic piece said that he was beginning to become a bit of a liability from a tactical sense, and it was very difficult for Gasperini to almost shoehorn him in. Because as you rightly mentioned before, their start to the season was quite erratic, and they weren't necessarily able to keep up that kind of high press, relentless style of football that they were playing. So in response to that, they had to drop one of the forwards, and it often ended up becoming Papu Gomez. So do you think that ahead of this clash with Real Madrid, there could be more of a sense that they can get back to being either defensively solid or attackingly fluid, but they won't have the headache perhaps of getting Gomez back into the side?
I think the game will suit them quite well. I think they go into it again as underdogs. I think people are starting to realise Real Madrid is still Real Madrid. Atlanta is still Atlanta. I mean, I'll be honest, when I picked it, when it was drawn out after the group stages, I was sort of said, Atlanta's going to win it. Yeah. Maybe that's my heart saying it, but I think the closer we get to the game, I'm sort of realising Real Madrid still have a lot of quality, and Atlanta have had some good games this season, but I'm not convinced that they'll get through, unfortunately.
Of course, they're in good form at the moment, aren't they, Real Madrid?
But both teams are in not too bad form, considering they've all had patchy seasons. But again,
I think it's sorry, go on.
I'm intrigued to see how the Real Madrid perform in a big game because they haven't had a big game for quite a while. The games they've performed well in so far have been against the lower teams, which is sort of gives them the reputation they're sort of bullies, if you will. They are quite a bullish team, and I think
they are.
This has been their biggest game for a while now, and this would be a test really to see if Zidane's got the staying power to continue doing what he's been doing for the past couple of years.
You would be a brave man to bet against Real Madrid in the Champions League, seen their previous records.
Again, it's my heart just saying it, but I still think Atlanta could win it, and that's. I mean, Hazard's out injured, isn't he? Still made glass.
Yeah, I wanted to talk briefly about their injury woes for Real Madrid in a minute, but as you say, they are both in good form. Real Madrid with 4 wins and a loss out of their last 5 games, and Atalanta on 3 wins, a draw and a loss. So both teams coming into it from a fairly similar standpoint. But I love to think with the heart rather than the brain. So I might go ahead and bat you and say that Atalanta could do a job. We're recording this pod 2 hours before kickoff of the game tonight. So when you're eventually listening to it, you can either laugh at us for how wrong we were or lather praise in the comments section if you're watching on YouTube for what crystal ball wielding geniuses that we clearly are.
I'm sure they would be laughing at us anyway, so...
Probably. It's very laughable. But quickly, Real Madrid's injury record. They've now got 45% of their senior outfield players injured, and they now have 41 injuries overall this season. they're presumably going to have to be giving youth a chance in this game, or if not youth, backup. So if ever there was a time for Atalanta to get a cheeky win, let's say, it would be now, don't you think?
Yeah, but again, I was just Real in the Champions League. It does just scare me. There is an aura to them, even though they have been quite comical in the past couple of years. There's just something about Zidane.
3 wins on the bounce
like him.
is no laughing matter, is it?
No, yeah, but they have been very, very poor in the Champions League since then.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe we'll be in luck. But
there was a really bizarre video that did the rounds on Twitter not too long ago of Luka Modric on a leg press. Did you see it?
No, I'd love to see this. I'm intrigued to see what happened.
I'll have to tag you in it afterwards if I can still find it. But basically, it was Modric and the other senior players doing their training routine in the gym. And he was on the leg press, but he was fully locking his knees out and almost jumping back and forth on it. And all of the comments were saying, what the hell are they being taught, really? And it's probably no wonder that they've now got so many senior players injured when it was some of the worst form. I mean, I'm no gym avid goer. You can probably tell me all about that. But it was just a really weird thing to watch.
I was about to say, was there an adult present? But then I realised they're all adults.
They are all adults.
No, in my head I could just
masters of their own destiny.
Yeah, I can just picture like Dobby with Modric's hair just jumping about on a leg press. Can't get the image out of my head now.
Is that because Luka Modric looks a bit like Dobby?
I didn't want to say it, but I guess I've implied it quite heavily. But nah, Luka Modric, lovely looking lad.
So hopefully they won't have any more crippling injuries, but with training exercises like that, I wouldn't be surprised if they got themselves in some future hot water. But we're approaching the end of the pod. We've got one more little topic to talk about, and that's about Ligue 1 and PSG. So currently, PSG are the Ligue 1 royalty, aren't they? They've won 7 of the last 8 available titles. They were pipped to the post by Monaco in that famous Leonardo Jardim side they had a couple of years ago. But they currently sit third, and they're 4 points off league leaders Lille. How do you see Ligue 1 playing out? Because it's not very well contested normally, but do you think we could see another Monaco season this time?
Yeah, I think Ligue 1 has had some unbelievably bad press in recent years. I don't think it's been unfair to be honest. France is the biggest producer of world-class talent, that's a fact. And most of these players come through Ligue 1. Yes, some go abroad quite early, but there's also been a lot of talent there. And so I think it's always had the potential to be closer to the other leagues like Spain, Italy, Germany. So in that respect, I think what we're seeing now is the fruits of that labour. There's so many good academies there, but the problem we're now seeing is in terms of television money, there's been a bit of a calamity of errors, and I think the future now looks quite bleak. Despite on the pitch, things are actually going quite well. They look quite well balanced in terms of the competitive nature of it. Lille, I think in the games against Lille, Monaco, is it maybe Lyon? PSG have taken just
Lyon
one.
a third, yeah.
Yeah. So
second.
So PSG have taken 1 point from possible 12 against those teams, which show these teams.
Yeah.
They can go and beat them. It's like there is the opportunity for these teams to press on and match PSG. I know you can argue that PSG are underperforming, which is, to be fair, they probably are. There's a reason why they had to change their coach so early in the season. Yeah. But you can't help but admire the work being done by the likes of Kovac at Monaco, bridging that gap.
I was a big Eintracht Frankfurt fan, so naturally I think Niko Kovac is the second coming of Christ in many ways. It didn't work out for him at Bayern Munich, but it is very nice to see him achieving things with a good football club, not a football club that are probably at the same level of Eintracht Frankfurt. I'd say Monaco. Maybe you'd argue Monaco.
They're more prestigious,
a slightly more prestigious outfit. Yeah. But as you say, PSG underperforming, and I think that is true. Their top goal scorer is Kylian Mbappe, who I think has 16 goals from his 26 appearances. And Neymar as well has only made 11 appearances this season. He's obviously injured around the time of his sister's birthday, I guess.
We won't make a comment on that, but you can...
Which we should probably not draw too much attention to.
Yeah,
but Pochettino, is he the man to take them forward? And I think there's only one answer for that, but I want to hear your thoughts about it.
I don't be controversial, but I think no.
Oh, go on.
Well, for some reason, I do think he's one of the top three to five managers in the world, but I don't think he wants to be there. I think he only took that job.
He was just desperate for work.
He was out of job for a very long time. I genuinely believe he thought, I'll wait till the season. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, there's no way in hell he'll somehow get another season at United.
Yeah.
He somehow gets into the Champions League. They have a bad start to the season, but he sort of picked things up again. And at this stage, he had no choice. He had to go to PSG. And they've sort of tried to play on this sort of... They've tried to romanticise his return. He spent, I think, 2 years there, from 2001 to 2003, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit earlier. And there's a reason he signed an 18-month contract. That's not a long-term vision. I just don't think he'll get the sort of competitive satisfaction that he's been looking for.
I think that is an excellent point. And perhaps that won't mean that I guess as a coach, you have to be as invested in winning things as possible in order for that to then filter down into the team, I think. And there perhaps is an argument to say that Poch is now in a position where he can prove those cynical doubters that he faced in the Premier League wrong, who claimed that he can't be considered a good coach because he hasn't won anything, simply, apart from an Audi Cup, but that doesn't count. And so perhaps now that drive for him to prove that he is all that, and I personally think he is, may push him on to achieve bigger things with PSG. But I accept the point that he really wanted to come back to England, didn't he? I think that was a pretty established precedent.
I think once his gardening leave was up, I think he got a nice gardening leave, to be fair to him. I think he thought he was getting one of the top jobs. Even at that point, it sort of looked like Pep Guardiola might move on because he had a really bad season.
Yeah.
Like, that's something. PSG is one of the best jobs you can have in the world. I'd love to be PSG manager. If they do sack Poch, give me a ring. But I think Poch, he lives for every single game. I think he loved the Premier League every single game. That was sort of that. It was tough, and I think he loved it. I think he liked being respected for you could when you're at PSG, you're sort of judged essentially on 13 games, those Champions League games. Everyone else, you can't do well in. It's just an expectation that you win everything. Yeah. So I don't know if that will play into Pochettino's sort of character and state of mind. So that's why I think he's gone to PSG, win the Champions League, and maybe depart in 18 months. Unless they're giving loads of money.
Is it possible we see what I like to call Brendan Rodgers syndrome? Losing his job at a top six club to go to a league where you've rightly pointed out that he's expected to win domestic titles in domestic cups, only to then make a glamorous return back to the Premier League, and then, as Brendan Rodgers is now doing with Leicester, go to reach flying heights and lots of dizzy success. But perhaps that's just me wanting to see Poch in his element at a club that is not a super club, but winning things.
No, I think when he comes back to the Premier League, it will be a Manchester City, Liverpool, maybe not Liverpool. I think United will have him earmarked as a future. I think that's the job he really wanted because it fits. He strikes me as sort of a proud man. I don't know. I think he likes the idea of being at this massive club, and I think that was the one thing which always held him back at Spurs. I think that massive disconnect between he reached a ceiling, and I don't think Levy could match his ambition to push on and make Spurs a bigger club than they were. If that makes sense.
Hey, absolutely, it does. And coming off the back of their first Champions League final, I think PSG players as well will feel like they have a lot to prove, and it could be a very exciting 18 months. Hopefully, for his sake, he might be there a little longer. But for the footballing world's sake, let's just hope they terminate his contract tomorrow, and Solskjaer can go while they're at it as well, and we can see him back.
I'd like to see him in the Championship. That'd be nice. Give him the Championship.
But I think that's about all we've got time for this first episode of the Students of the Game podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback. If you're listening to this on LGSM, I don't really think there's not a comment section, so you can't comment that easily. But if you'd like to get in touch with us, either on YouTube, we're going to be starting a YouTube channel to upload all these episodes on, then that would be great to hear some of your feedback and perhaps some suggestions for future topics that we can talk about. You can also find us on Twitter. My @ is @PitchersGeorge. Max?
No
Unless
idea.
you don't want to share it.
No, I'm going to shield myself away from these people.
I think that's probably wise. But thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure to host this first one. And hopefully lots of content to look forward to. Isn't that right?
Yeah, begrudgingly, yes. I think it could get better. We don't know. But
for a man working a full-time job and a degree, taking this on, you've certainly be burning the candle at both ends, won't you?
Yeah, just wait to get in that toilet.
So thank you very much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode of the Students of the Game podcast.